Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to the Darolyn Brock TV show where we talk about all things relationships and marriages. Good evening. We've got a very, very, very good topic tonight. We're talking about challenges in marriages, but we're talking about ages and age gaps. I'm going to bring my co host on and I'm going to tell you about. We've got a special guest that's going to be before us for about, let's see here, about 25 minutes. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening,
Good evening.
good
Good
evening.
evening. Hello.
Good. So we're talking about the age and the age gaps, and I think the first one we have on here is marrying young, 18 to 25. Um, Marrying later in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, and we have the age gap marriages, which are 10 to 20 years. I'm going to bring our guest to the stage and let's see if she can see us. Okay. Welcome, Lady Kanisha. How are you?
Hello, hello, hello. Can you guys see me and
Hey,
hear me
you can
clearly?
pronounce here. Hey,
Yes, we can
repeat
see
that,
you and we
Pastor
can
D.
definitely hear you.
Okay, it's nice to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You're certainly welcome. So I met Miss English before. Let me say it again. I went to one of her retreats, and at the retreat was the first time that I got a chance to meet her. But at that retreat is when I found out that no, that's not our first time meeting. Prior to that, I found out that was not our first time ever meeting. And so she gave bits and pieces of her marriage. Um, she's very, very transparent. She's able to reach you as far as people in marriages and what they may deal with. She's able to talk to being example of walking it out, whether she wanted to walk it out or didn't want to walk it out, what that looks like. So I thought it would be very befitting for her to actually come on today and give us a talk because we're talking about the age groups. So I'm going to let her introduce herself, and you got the stage.
All right, okay. I am Minister Kanisha English, and I have been married now for 23 years. I have 5 children, my husband and I, from the ages of, let's see, oldest 21, 21 to 10. So we are homeschoolers, and this has been a walk. This has been a journey that, as Pastor D said, I have been very transparent about because I just believe that we go through life's journey to be able to help others through life's journey. So I am here to share and talk about whatever it is you guys want to talk about. I got married early at 21 years old. My husband is 7 years older than me. So that has been an interesting journey.
Tell us a little bit about how you guys met, being that y'all were 7 years apart.
Okay. So we met um in a neighborhood. As you can hear, from New Orleans, Louisiana. And my husband and I both are from New Orleans. And so just hanging out in the neighborhood, him passing by, passing through, having family across the street, never thinking that we would end up in a marriage together. Just, in fact, my husband had moved away to Texas years before, and the Lord had given him a dream that I was his wife. And the interesting thing about that dream, my husband had a dream that I was in front of his door with a wedding gown on, but the wedding gown was filthy. The wedding gown was very dirty, and he picked me up and brought me into his home. And so he said he woke up and was like, "That ain't my wife, and that ain't from God. That's the devil." And so years later, the Lord would have us come back together. We had never dated. We had never engaged in any kind of relationship, just hello, hi, and bye. But the Lord has saw fit for us to meet back up again after a, a long period of time. So just a little backstory. I grew up early, fast, if you want to say. I lived with a guy at the age of 16. From 16 to 19, I lived with somebody, and that was very toxic and very destructive. And so I spent 2 years surrendering my life little by little to Jesus. And then my husband would come at 20, but we would just date for a year leading up to marriage.
So tell us about let's talk through two couples that may be married young, right?
Hmm.
And they're in that early stage. They're in the first decade,
Oh,
going into the second. What happened?
there's so many different challenges. Number one, at 21 years old, what do you really know? We think we know a lot, but what do we really know? So I did not yet know myself. As I just stated, I came from a toxic relationship. So I had baggage. My husband had baggage. And so we have two totally different people coming together to try to merge together as one. And I call it the friction. You know how you get carpet burn? Carpet burn comes from friction. You are rubbing your body up against the carpet in the opposite direction of the grain, and it causes a burn. That's what it feels like to me in the first, oh, for me, it was the first 10, 15 years. That's a whole nother story. But it's a burn of the two becoming one. There's friction. You're bracing up against each other. You feel like you're going in the opposite direction. You're coming from two totally different households. You've experienced different things. You've been taught and trained in different ways. For in our case, I came from a large family. My husband came from a very small family. I saw a lot of things as selfishness that was normal to him because I was taught and raised give, share, and bring everybody in. We all one big happy family, and my husband totally different. He likes to be alone. He likes quietness, and we come from a very loud. So all of those little bitty things that just burn. That's just the basics. But I would say, like I said before, the age difference, because I grew up fast, I didn't experience a lot of not understanding him being 7 years older. However, when we came into the marriage, we both were just believers. Like we both just believed in Jesus. We both just, yeah, we know about God. But when I got married, I dug deeper and my husband remained. And so that caused a lot of friction. It caused a lot of friction because I'm growing to learn to become the wife of God. But at the same time, I'm trying to learn to become this man's wife, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
That's her. So yeah, that to me, some of the issues was just merging together, learning. Okay, just because you cook it, like, let me tell y'all, we used to have two pots of red beans and rice on the stove because he cooked it one way and my family cooked it one way, his family cooked it the other way. We had two pots of spaghetti and meatball on the stove because I cooked without the sugar. He cooked and make it sweet. And so in the beginning, it was hectic. We were just trying to make it work, and it was just stressful. It took a lot of prayers, a lot of arguments, a lot of packing my bags and saying, "Let me get out of this because this ain't working." However, we 23 years in the game, so we figuring this thing out.
So tell us about the part where you decide I'm about to do this thing God's way. Give us just a
Ooh,
little bit backstory of before, even though y'all both were
yes.
believers. Give us a little backstory for those that are believers and they may be in a relationship where, one is maybe more spiritually mature than the other.
Well, the background, the good news is my husband came from a praying family. So even though he was scratching the surface, he had these morals instilled in him, godly principles. So he, just as well as I, didn't want. So a little bit backstory. When I left that toxic relationship, my prayer to God was, okay, Lord, I don't want to give my body to another man that's not my husband. So I wrote a list, and this is what I need in a man, and I want a husband. Put that list in my Bible and left it alone. But what I will say is what stuck out to me about my husband, even in the dating phase, he wouldn't touch me until he kept saying, I want you to know that I want you to be my wife. And I don't want anything else for you. Now, this is a hood dude. This ain't no godly man. So don't be in y'all head thinking, oh, he was so. No, no. He probably had about some other women that he was whatever, whatever. But for me, he was like, no, I don't want anything from you because he knew what God had showed him. I, on the other hand, I was just at a place where I was tired of living in sin. I was tired of getting it wrong. I was tired of messing up. I started living a grown up life at about 14 years old. So I had been in and out of juvenile detention. I had been sexing, drinking, drugging, whatever else you want to say. I had done it a lot in a very short amount of time. And so that was one of the main things. It intrigued me that he didn't do what anybody else did. He didn't take anything from me. And now, like I said, I dove once we got married, I dove in deep and homeboy just stayed the same. And that caused a lot of issues. But that was the moment, the shift in me saying, I want to do this thing God's way. Because I had always read my Bible. I used to read my Bible and then go out in the streets and be gone for months. My mother didn't even know where I was. Then I would come back home and I would worship and I would pray and I would say, God, I'm trapped in this life. If you don't deliver me, how can I be free? So I don't know if you guys know or you ladies know that song, Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy. I would sing that when I was bound in sin. And then I would go out and sin some more until God delivered me. But that was the shift. It was okay. I don't want this life. And I can't rescue myself, but I knew for some reason God had put in me that marriage was sacred and that if I was to marry, that was a total surrender, not just to God, but to this marriage that I was entering into. I hope I'm making sense.
You are making sense. So, how does a person that decides that they want to mature in God, like you said, you were digging in, and they're in a position where it seems like that the husband is not? Take us a little bit through that walk.
There's nothing you can do about that. No. Honestly. No, on a serious note, I thought about this earlier because I asked myself earlier, did I have any expectations coming into this marriage? I don't think I had much expectation. But what I found out was once we got married, it was like hell on earth. It was like every demon that existed was unleashed against our marriage. And so I would say two I not for any other person, it could be one person, but I had two women that were solid older women. One taught me practical things to do and the other taught me spiritual things to do. And so those two women together, I just lost one in February, but those two women together carried me through many years. So I would say wisdom from older people, because back then my mindset was, he is jacked up. Lord, you need to fix him. And I'll never forget one of my spiritual moms. She said, I need you to ask the Lord to give you a greater love for your husband. And I was like, I love my husband. What's she talking about? I was mad at her, hung up the phone and everything. But when I hung up, I said, Lord, I don't know what she's talking about, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And the Lord did that. He gave me a greater love for my husband where I didn't love him in a relationship type of way as I always had known relationship. I love his soul. I love him as a man. I love him as a brother. And so it shifted because God was really like, I put Adam to sleep while I formed Eve. He said, sometimes I put a husband in a sleeping state because I'm working on you. And I was like, oh, okay. So it changed my prayer life to be able to. Marriage is a mirror, and if you've been married, I know you see more of yourself in that thing called marriage than anything. It is a literal debt process. You continue to look at yourself and say, "Oh, that needs to be adjusted. This needs to be fixed." But when you're looking outwardly about how many things he's doing wrong, what he's not getting right, then all that's going to do is keep y'all in confusion. So I learned, and I'm still learning to
Oh yeah.
surrender more and more and more each year we go by. It's just like, okay, there's nothing I can do. I can't even fix myself. I'm going to fix somebody else. If God don't do it, it can't be done. And so at the end of the day, I would say to that person, you surrender that person to God. And that is not a one time thing, that is a continual surrender. As we learn to grow and that person is growing, then that's something we consistently do, not a one time thing. And y'all just let me know if I'm over talking because you know I'll be talking a lot.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I can remember that you gave a small snippet of it, and I just laughed. It was so funny to me.
Or,
You went before God and you said, God, I'll marry the devil.
oh, yes.
And what's amazing is how this person that you call the devil, God began to work on you totally. I
Yeah.
mean, totally in such a way that you became such a godly woman based on that you did have this. I call them like disciples with you, right? You had a spiritual, you had a natural, but you were willing to pay the price for what they said because they gave you the word
Yes.
regardless of how you started, um, you were willing to lay it all down. And in marriages, everybody's not willing to do that. They're willing to go so far, even though you can't change him, but you agreed to keep allowing God to change you.
Yes, yes, yes. I did. I thought I married the devil, and going back to the beginning, that wedding gown, the dream he had, that I was just the gown I had on was filthy. The revelation that God gave me years later, because I couldn't handle that back then. If he'd have told me the fullness of the dream, we would have been fighting. What you mean you had to rescue me? Jesus is my savior. I don't need you. But
Yeah.
as I think back, I was toe up. And though I thought back then that being the head was about him reading the Bible to me, teaching me the word and all this, no, God used him to position me so that God could deal with me, so that God could deliver me, so that God could heal me. I was a stay-at-home mom for 17 years. And during that time, I fell in love with Jesus. I went through all kind of things. So now I know that the wedding gown was a representation of my rags, my lifestyle, how it was, and how God used him. But during the time, one of the first visions I had when we got married was I saw a whirlwind in my husband's hand, and he was touching my back and pulling things out and quoting scriptures. And I was like, what is that? Years later, I would come to understand that what the enemy meant for evil, all what seemed to be chaos and confusion, the whirlwinds that seemed to be taking place in our marriage, from losing a baby, from me almost dying, being given 24 hours to live, then my husband had a stroke, and all these different things, all of these whirlwinds where the enemy thought he was destroying something, God was using it to pull out the pride in me because I had pride. The arrogance. I don't need no man. I've been taking care of myself since I was 16 years old. What I need you for? All of that stuff God was pulling out of me so that he can bring me into a place where he can begin to, because Jesus ain't coming back for a bride with no filthy dress. So he can iron those wrinkles out and blot out those spots. That's what this marriage has been for me. And I'm so grateful. But back then, yeah, I was like going back to the Lord. You told me to do this, and this is the devil. This man is the devil. But it wasn't. It was the enemy was very active,
Yes.
but yet and still, God was allowing it to perfect, to get the foolishness, the junk out of me. Because who would have known that I would have 4 daughters that will one day be wives?
Who to know it?
I couldn't have taught them nothing about being a godly woman back then. And then the mandate that my husband has on his life, I couldn't help him carry that. I didn't have the grace to do that. I would have sabotaged. So sometimes God will put that husband in a sleeping state so that he can work on the wife, forming us to be the helpmeet that we need to be. Because it's bigger than our marriage. Eric not coming before God with me. It's going to be me and the Lord saying, what did you do, Kanisha, with what I gave you?
So who are we talking to? Um, Someone that had 17 years to be at home with her kids and teach them the word,
Mm,
not just the academics, but you got a chance to teach them the word. And
yes.
even in all that chaos, all those many years ago, you can sit here before us with 4 daughters and a son, and you can tell how y'all sat down, y'all read the word together, y'all talked about the word, and y'all still do. They're adult children, but you had to surrender to something.
Oh, yes.
And just talk to them right now about, you mentioned about God turning around. Tell them exactly what you actively do. Tell them about
Well,
I was on the marriage call last Friday.
okay.
Show them how God turned all this around.
So one of the things that God gave me at 16 was a promise that he was going to give me children. Little did I know that I would be told that I couldn't have children. And so when we got married, we went on a journey of me being barren, me not being able to have children. That was the enemy's plan. However, my vow to God was, if you touch my womb, I will put your word in them. And I ain't say 5. I'll just like, I had to go to God and be like, when we gonna stop this thing? Because that wasn't part of the plan. However, I surrendered completely. When I dove in head first. Some people reminisce about the past and how much they loved their sinful life. I didn't. I was miserable in it. So when I jumped in and surrendered, I jumped in and surrendered all. So I taught my children from the womb about worship. I taught my children when they were babies. I never had, I call it cotton candy Bible studies. We having cotton candy Bible studies with our children when the devil, I saw a video the other day of parents teaching their children how to do witchcraft, little bitty 8-year olds, 7-year olds, 6-year olds. So the enemy is raising up warriors for his team, but we keep feeding our children Jonah in the well, Noah and the ark. How many years we gonna give them same old Bible stories? We need to dig in with our children and sow seeds. So I started doing that as they ate baby food. I started teaching them the Bible while they were eating their baby food. And so, saying all of that to say, solidly just sowing, because that was my part of the deal. A lot of times we make vows to God, but we don't keep them.
Mm.
That was my part of the deal. You bless me and you open my wound, I'm going to do that. So, long story short, after so many years of God beginning to just transform our love relationship, me and my husband, my sister called me one day and she said, "What do you want to do? What do you really want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I just want to do whatever the Lord wants me to do." She said, "I don't want to hear all that. What do you really want to do?" And I said, "I really want to do marriage ministry." And she said, "Well, do it. What are you waiting for?" So COVID happened, and I saw a lot of couples divorcing. I saw couples being forced to be in the house together and realizing they don't like each other. I saw couples because we were going in and out. You going to work, I'm going to take care of the kids, I'm going to work, and we only seeing each other for a few minutes a day. Now we're stuck in the house for hours and days at a time, and people were literally divorcing. Go check the stat. The divorce rate during COVID skyrocketed. So I decided while we had the men home, I started doing couples nights. I started doing marriage talk couples nights and marriage talk ladies nights by Zoom, and that was a major blessing. It was a major blessing. So that's what I'm doing. We do wives retreats. We do ladies night often, once a month. We have men's night, because since the men was allowed to go back to work, it was hard to get them to come back to the calls. But now we're gonna have the men host their nights, and then try to do more couples nights, try to come in person more. And it's older women, mid-aged women, older men, younger men, because I believe we can all learn from each other. I believe if I had not had those older women in my life, I know I would be divorced. I know it because I packed my stuff so many times. But they help to keep me grounded. I believe community helps to keep us grounded. And if we don't have that community of believers, community of people trying to do kingdom marriages, I feel like if we don't have that support, then we will struggle way more than we need to. You know, we go to school and we study to be doctors and lawyers and nurses and all these. We go to school for everything, but nobody really go to school to learn how to be a good wife,
Mm.
how to be a
Wow.
good husband. So
Wow.
we need to start sowing into our marriages and sowing into marriages around us. And I hope that makes sense. I hope I answered your question.
Pastor Casey talked about community. Um, the last two shows, she talked about community and how important. I'm gonna let her talk to it. I don't know if she's muted or not.
Did you say me, Pastor
Uh
D?
huh.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you kind of cut out, so I didn't hear if you were saying me or not. Sorry about that. Uh, what in particular do you want me to address to
She
speak
was.
towards?
She talked about community, and that's one of the things that you told us that as married couples need a community. A couples they need that. She must can't hear me. Go ahead, Pastor Bell.
I just love your testimony. I love everything that you've been sharing. You've hit on all
I
bases,
think
and
that's
oh, I think Casey's trying to talk now.
one thing that is missing from a lot of uh,
There seems to be a delay.
She's low.
go ahead, Pastor Bed.
Okay, I was just saying, I just was enjoying what you were
Go ahead,
sharing,
Pastor
and
Bed.
okay, you can't hear me, Casey? Can you hear me, Darolyn and Tanisha?
We can hear you.
Okay, okay. I heard you say something about you didn't have expectation, but I think you really did have expectation on the inside of you. And just hearing those seeds that you was that the Lord was sowing into your life when you were young, you said that you would read the Bible and spite. God was working something deep in there, and He was preparing you. You did have an expectation, and we may not know it sometimes, but just to hear the testimony on how God walked you through, you could see He was fulfilling those expectations that was on the inside of you. And I agree 100%. I look at marriages, and especially like you're saying, us in the body of Christ. I don't think we really understand the importance of that union and what God wants to do. He wants to populate, He wants to advance the kingdom, but so often we want out. You know, when we go in with the wrong mindset, I was married before, and my mindset was, well, if this don't work, I can do good all by myself. So you have that wrong mindset. But when we begin to get the mind of Christ, which is what I'm hearing took place in your life, then God began to move, because oftentimes we find out it's something far greater than ourselves. So again, just hearing what God was doing, and you talked about the 5 kids, and when mentioned that, I thought about grace, 5 representing grace, and God's grace was sufficient, as you walk through those things. And I think a lot of times, I love the fact when you said that, what do you say, cotton candy? We're giving the kids cotton candy. We're teaching them Bible stories. And, kids are sponges. They can pick things up. And if you put it in them at an early age, it's going to grow. So I just love, the way God process you through, because, we all are in process, but we have to commit to the process. And a lot of times our flesh don't want us to commit to the process.
Yes. And so I like what you shared as well on all the different things. I do want to jump on about the community portion of it. And community is so important, it strengthens. And as you mentioned, you had 2 women that were able to give you both practical and the spiritual. And one of the things that I believe that we need more of are those women to speak life, to help us to process. It can be one woman that can get both. God can raise up 2 people. But I think it was unique because the Bible tells us that there's safety in wise counsel. We need wise counsel when you're entering into a marriage and you're building. So that community portion, I believe, is what can sustain a lot of marriages. You had the community. And so one of the things that I'm praying for too is our men. Not only did you have a community, but now you built a community.
Yes.
That's powerful. So you became what you had. And that's the whole premise of our purpose being on the earth. God said to be fruitful and multiply. And sometimes we limit what He means in our multiplication. And so that community that you needed, those women that were wise women for you, now you multiplied. How did you multiply? By creating another community, a safe place for other couples to come in. And you did it at such a strategic time. God is beyond genius. I love saying that. Like you said, right in the heart of the pandemic, you're bringing people together because God is strategic. We're the only ones caught off guard in the flesh, but He knows everything. So even with God knowing everything, He knew you needed a community, but beyond you needing that, you said you needed it. He knew that that's what He had called you to and purposed you to. So that community is such a safety net. It is so needed in marriages, in relationships. It's not good for any of us to be alone as couples because we need that accountability. So our community, it provides for us accountability. It provides for us not just accountability, but a fun space as well. Because we do see sometimes in relationships, you have one spouse that can go off on their own and they have friends, and then the other one may not. But when you have a community of couples, since we're talking about marriage, it helps us all to make sure there's a balance of relationship.
Yes.
And a balance doesn't mean you have 2 friends, he has 2 friends. No, it just means there's a safe place. You may have 5 friends, but he has 1. He has someone to connect with, or vice versa. So that community portion, I think, is very good. And I love just your life being that testament of God planting the seed and developing you, whether you knew it or not. You may have saw it as just having wisdom, but no, he was preparing you for your ultimate purpose, to have a retreat area, to have ministry for couples.
Kanisha is can you, if you have time, if not, I'll put in the comments. Can you tell us how do we join Marriage Talk? How do we join?
Can you guys hear me? Because the sound went out for a bit.
Yes. Tell
Okay.
how do you join Marriage Talk?
Oh, you can join Marriage Talk multiple ways. There's a Facebook Marriage Talk page. It's Marriage Talk Kingdom Style on Facebook. You can find it. We also have a group me. The group me I call our Underground Railroad. And that group me is because some women on there are leaders. Some women on there are pastors' wives or are in leadership some sort of way, and we don't want people's business being broadcast. So this is where intimacy take place, where we pray for one another through things. We sometimes there's midnight prayer, where we journey through, we share things in that space. So I call it my little underground railroad. And for that information, you can just leave a message, reach out to me on Kingdom Marriage Talk Kingdom Style Facebook page, and I can add you to the group me. There's also a website on and the two become one.com, and the two become one.com, where we post retreat information. We post I you can purchase my marriage book through there. We post all kind of nuggets and information about marriages, and there's more to come in that, because I have not been being a good steward with plugging all the information in. But there's multiple ways. So hit me up and I'll be glad. Also, I am looking for more men who are willing to lead, who are willing to share. And so that is a need. That is a need that I think we should carry in prayer, as well as if you know anybody, let them know there's a group of men that can use the encouragement. I hope I answered your question.
You did. Yes, you did. You definitely did. I know that you here till 7:45. It's 7:43 now, and I
Hmm.
don't want to compromise what the time frame that you had based on what you needed to do. But we all wanted to thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for encouraging. Thank you for pouring out. Thank you for being vulnerable, and thank you for giving the encouragement that marriages need.
Thank you so much for having me and for trusting me to be a voice in this season. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're
You're
so
a
welcome.
blessing.
And it was so nice to meet you, ladies. Hopefully
Nice
it
to
won't be
meet
the last time.
Yes. Hopefully, it will not be the last time.
Okay, I'll go listen in while I work.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
you. God bless.
Okay, ladies, let's deal with the age gap. Let's do this 10 to what I have on here. This 10 to 20 year gap. Based on the fact that, when there's different things that they're going to have to deal with, and how they deal with things is going to be a totally different than if they were 18 or 25. So you're talking about, hypothetically, let's say that I am 30 years old and he is 60 or 58. Some of the different things that they may need to think about before they enter the marriage, or if they're already in it. Let's encourage them today. Don't both of y'all jump in at the same time.
I'm sorry, it's on mute. Yeah, some of the things like the bullet points you put there that they have to consider is they were brought up in two different cultures, two different times and seasons. So their upbringing may be different. And again, just as we heard from our guest, that you have to be willing, though. See, sometimes people want marriage the way they want it. They want that person to to obey them and submit to them. They have all these things, I believe, in their mind already preconceived. And so I think it can work. I know a couple of people, I was just trying to remember here. The young lady is 29, her husband is 48. They have one child. She didn't have any kids. They have one child, and God has just really blessed them. But what I noticed about her, she was part of our ministry for years, is that the word that she heard, she applied it. She would always say, "Thank you guys for teaching me," because that's young. But she is a very submissive wife. He's a pastor, and God has just really blessed them, and she's just really enjoying life. So I think, regardless of the age gap, if you don't let this get in the way, if your heart is really for marriage, again, we talked about some people being in love with the ideal of marriage, but if you can really get a understanding about marriage, and two is better than one, that you can really enjoy that. Because I think whatever age that you are, you're going to have some bumps. You're going to have some bumps in the road. There's another couple I thought about. I think she's 29 and he's 38. Uh, just really growing in that marriage, growing together, working together. They have a newborn. I think he's 4 months or something like that. So just seeing them walk through this, one couple, they're strong in the Lord. The other couple are learning the things of God. But I just see them both growing, and I think it's going to matter how you think about things and how you perceive things on how you're going to go through it.
So, Pastor Casey, 29, your daughter's 29, this is hypothetical, and she tells you that she is dating someone that is 50. From a mom's point of view, how do you deal with that?
I tell him to get away from my daughter.
Okay, let me take age
No,
back down.
no. I'm being silly. No, I'm being silly. So I think I'm being serious and funny at the same time. Here's the thing: the conversation, communication is going to be key, because I do believe that a relationship with that age gap can work, but there has to be communication up front. And I also think when there is that age gap, that's where community is important, because there are some significant experiences that are totally different. If you take someone 50, they have experienced some things that a 29-year-old has not, just in a natural sense, experienced yet. And so they may not understand. So I think the safety net for an age gap, whether it's male being 50 or the female, I think that community is going to, first of all, help. It's going to be able to assess, is this actually something that's real, or is this a midlife crisis for the older person? Just dealing with that reality. Now, if it is something real, communication, having conversations. The 50-year-old needs to be able to explain to the 20-year-old what they're going through, and vice versa. Some of the things that the 29-year-old may be experiencing, that older party may have experienced already. But I still think it boils down to having a safe community. Pastor Bear talked about the couple being taught the word, receiving the word. That word is going to have to be your foundation. We're godly people, so the word is going to need to be our foundation. But let's say you have someone that doesn't know the word, or just growing in the word, still having that righteous community. That's why it's so important to get planted in the church. I know today people don't like to hear that, but a church should serve as a safety net to find other couples that are wise, that can walk you through. Because a 29-year-old may not understand what a 50-year-old or someone older is going through, the changes of life. It's foreign. And so even in the communication part, they still may not be able to comprehend. But when you have that safety group, that community that can speak to different stages, I think it can work. But I do think that it needs to be an assessment. We don't want someone looking for a parent and a spouse, because the spouse is not the parent. Have a daughter wanting a father and then falling in love with a man, more of a father figure instead of a husband. Those are two different roles, both protective roles, but the intimacy is different. And so someone that has a wound that doesn't understand that may end up with the older gentleman looking for the father figure, but that's why a community is helpful. And also a wise man will be able to identify in the woman, okay, she's looking for a father. And he may be, surprise, surprise, be the one that helps heal that process so she can discern. But again, that safety net is going to be that community, that righteous community.
So it's about 7:50. We're going to end at 8 o'clock because we're definitely going to pick this back up. So how do you make it clear that when you have age gaps that big, that premarital counseling is necessary? It's always necessary. I'm not saying that it's not, but definitely, most definitely, when you've got big age groups like that, how do we emphasize that to keep it where when she says or he says how old the person is, that the immediately response is not, you got to be kidding. So how do we get them there?
I think the conversation needs to be held just even, before then. Like our daughter Bria, she's 29, she's never been married, don't have any kids. And so she would ask me, Mom, how old do you think is too old? And being natural, Casey was joking around, but when your kid come home talking about they marrying somebody, 10, 20 years, you are gonna look at them upside their head.
Absolutely,
like,
without a doubt. Absolutely.
But we have the conversation. She asked me, Mom, how old do you think is too old? And so we have the conversation already. So she knows. And then you talk about the reason why, like we're saying. We talk about the differences. And I hear Casey saying something that's so vital. Motive. Motive is everything. And so we have to ask the necessary questions so that they will be able to ask that individual who's approaching them the necessary questions. It's so important that you get to know the person, that you get to know their background, that you get to know their family. Then you can kind of put those dots together. And then you can make a real decision about, okay, why does he want to be in my life? So I think to have that question ahead of time, because I think most daughters, they value their moms, they value, your opinion and stuff. And so you want to give them tools to work with as they're, working through life.
Okay. So as a mom, I can fully understand without a shadow of a doubt if the young man was 29 or the young lady was 29 and the other person was 50. I fully understand that you're not going to get no, I'm so glad I've been praying for you. Because the first thing that's going to come to your mind is just you in your mind thinking, or me in my mind thinking, this person has already lived all of this. But this person has not had a chance to. As long as your heart is right toward God, I know that he can work it out. But I got to find out if that is, if that's what that is. And to keep from saying something that one or the other won't ever forget. Because sometimes we can say something that's a godly thing. We can, and we can say something in words that the individual won't ever forget. Later on, you may find out it was a godly thing. But what you said at first is something that the enemy can use as ammunition on that. So I said that to say that there are quite a few that I have seen and follow where they have this big age group, right? And I can sense in some of them, and some of them have said, where that family bond on each side is not there. And I think that is very important for that. And like you said, I do like the fact that, she asked you, how old is too old? So usually there's a reason, for that, because normally they don't go around saying, how old is too old? Because usually they don't, normally they don't go that far. But the fact that they did, it's okay. It's out there. The communication is open. So we want to make sure that they're successful too, and that they understand what they're up against. And I'm going to always be on their side. There's a lot more that you're going to be up against than somebody else. When I say up against, meaning that whoever is the older is going to get older than you and going to experience some things that can happen in their life. That, are you really and willing? Are you all in for this? Are you all in? Because their body is going to, our body going to change, but their body is going to change a whole lot quicker. So we want to make sure that we deal with some of that. Go ahead.
I mean, that's true. That's that conversation again, by covering every basis. My sister-in-law, her husband is older than her. I think she's 60, 63, 64 maybe, and he's 75, and he is dealing with health challenges and stuff like that. So I think that is a conversation to be had. But at the end of the day, if you have all those conversations, you present the scenario. The one thing I think is so vital is that we teach people to have a prayer life, because we may see things one way. We may have a different perception, but if they hear from God, then they'll be able to make a decision and be able to walk it out. So I think prayer is so important. Relationship with the Lord is so important.
I agree that prayer life has to be number one. Practical, you still, we have to give them practical tools, so that when it does happen, or if it does happen in another way that you did not expect, or you didn't expect it as soon, to make sure that you understand that God is still God. God is still able to walk you through it. I'm saying that there's a young lady, and I think their gap is, I want to say it's over 30 something. It's over 30 something years. And right now she's in the process of, I want to say that right now, I could be wrong, but her name's Darolyn, but I want to say he is 88. She is his caregiver. That's her husband though, but she's a caregiver. And she is, I want to say Darolyn might be, I don't think she's 50. So but they've been together, so I know that they've been together at least 29 years. Let me say that first of all. So if the conversation is had that something might happen based on how big this gap is, are you willing? Do you understand? Do you fully understand? And are you really ready for that? He had a stroke. He can't, right now he's doing better, but the whole process, the whole walk, she had to be willing to walk it out. She had to be willing. She had to know God for herself, right? Because it's easy to say, oh, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. So I said that to say, because we're seeing a lot of the big age groups, that they fully understand, are you willing to still sacrifice? Are you still ready to do the word? Pretty much what I'm saying. Are you still going to be ready to do the word if something happens? Either way. Mm-hmm. Pastor Casey, I'm going to let you get ready to close us out. I was thinking about what is that lady's name? She's on Instagram. Her name is Carol Milton. Go find her, because her tag is something about we're 40 years old or something like that or whatever. But when she first came on Instagram and I began to see her, they've grown since that time, but they had already been married over 20 something years. But she wasn't in the fight that she's in right now. But to watch her still take care of him, love him, be open about it, it's not something that everyone sees, and to live it out loud to me, it's a great example of how, you said yes. So since you said yes, let's do that. Right. So it's like, there's nothing financially, let me put it this way. There's nothing financially that either one of them could ever need or want, period. However, she's still walking through the process of getting him back to wherever he was, even though he was older. He was still old. You understand what I'm saying? But to be able to walk it out, oftentimes she will say, pray for me. I need just prayer for me, but I've never heard her one time say, I made the wrong decision. I've never heard her say one time that I should not have. I've never ever heard her in the midst of all the comments and all the things that people say, all of that stuff. Never once have I ever heard her say that. But anyway, I think she's a great example. I would love to get a chance to talk to her, or sometimes I send her like messages of encouragement. I send her words of encouragement and all that kind of stuff, and I pray. I don't know her personally. Don't get me wrong. I don't know her personally, but I just send her little things like that. And I think that, it's good. It's good to if you see someone like that, to just send them the word. But I'm gonna let you close out, Prophet K. But we're gonna finish up on this in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I know you guys got my message on the text message, but I'm not gonna say anything live yet. I'm gonna get with y'all first, but I'm not gonna say anything live on here yet. But yes, it was presented to me. But anyway, go ahead and close us out. Whatever you want to close out with, letting them know. Go ahead and close that out.
Okay, I want to speak really quick as we close out to the lady that's caring for her husband. And I think that's a great way for us to close out, because what people have to understand is life can actually happen. He just happens to be older. But illness, anything, some things are uncontrollable. It can happen at any stage. But we have to remember our covenant. And I know I go back to this, and I'm going to go back to it again. That's why a community to pray, because sometimes you do get weak. You can get faint. We see it with Jesus. He cried out. He said, Father, why have you forsaken me? But nevertheless. And so we do get those points. But that's why community, a safe community, people who could pray for you. And even God will raise up people, how he raised you up. And I'm sure many others, Pastor D, that see her post, and they begin to intercede and send encouraging words to her. That's ministry. That gives her strength to carry out, to remember the covenant, but to help her continue in the covenant. A lot of times we want to remind people of the covenant, and they don't need a reminder. They just need encouragement when they're dealing with life. And so I just want to encourage the people out there. If that happens to be you, you have a large window between you and your spouse, communicate, have real conversations, talk about the physical changes and the challenges, because these things are real. So the communication key, the community, and know that you all are one. You all are one. So I just encourage people to stay tuned to the Darolyn Brock Show as well, so you can continue to come and hear the word of the Lord. But keep God first. Have a prayer life. Get planted. I'm one of those people. I believe in prayer. We should pray, but I also believe in the word. And it says those that are planted in the house of the Lord will flourish in the courts of our God. And so if we see the courts as life, because God created all things, then you will prosper. And that is that safety net for you all.
Go, Pastor Bev, I didn't get a chance to give you a say. Please come through. We good?
Oh, I don't really have to say anything. Just ditto. God loves us. That's the thing we need to and God is for us. And he's definitely for your marriage. You got to believe that. You got to trust that, and he'll walk you through every facet. Casey said, because some people paint the picture like they never have issues or problems, but because the devil hates us and he hates marriage, because marriage represents God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but we have the victory. So just hang tight.
And we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.